Paul, good morning. Good morning, Paul Buckley. A theory on the clowns. Good morning. What do you think? This clown thing is just weird.
I thought the fool around area was your studio.
Good point. Okay.
Could be.
All right,
yeah.
good.
So now this is not my theory. This is my daughter Michaela's theory. She's deathly afraid of clowns, and so I called her.
My wife too, and my daughter as well. It's
I don't
really
know what
weird.
it's all about, but I mean these things are scary.
I guess, yeah.
And the local clowns we have that that do the parades and stuff like that, they're hysterical, and they're in their golf carts and their little bikes and stuff like that. But she thinks, and I have to agree with her, that this is a promo. They just did a remake of Stephen King's movie It, and it's not due out, I guess, till like next year or something like that. But this is probably a promo for that movie.
Well, it's interesting because Stephen King has actually spoken out on this.
And you remember when the Blair Witch movie first came out? They hyped the hell out of that on the internet and everything else. And it turned out to be a piece of crap, but they made a lot of money on it.
Yeah, so you think that's not a bad theory? And Stephen King came out and said, "Boy, this is even creepy for me."
Yeah,
isn't that interesting?
Well, they're having sightings all over the place now, so it's got to be. They all have to be connected.
The fact that Stephen King is actually commenting,
right,
does make me wonder. All right, your daughter's brilliant, Paul.
She is. She's my daughter. That's why.
That's exactly it. All right.
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, I like the theory. I really do. Okay, we've said all along, there's got to be something. What are you pushing? What are you plugging? What cause do you have?
Yeah.
What promotion are you trying to commit here? And, maybe that's it. Maybe it is just promoting a movie. There's a new HBO series that starts on Sunday. Andrew, you've been following any of this? I don't know if you have. This is a very... Here's the premise. It comes from I believe it was an old movie. And the story is that robots basically have been created. It's set in a Western-type setting.
Okay.
And it's modern day or maybe future time. And the robots, you go to this exotic land, like you go off to Disney, and you get plopped right into real Western life. And these robots are like human. You can't even tell the difference between the humans and the robots. And there's also, stuff that goes on that is R-rated. And it becomes a whole issue of, they're killing them, but are they really human? It's really a very interesting thing. And it's Abrams that is doing it. And what's his name is in it from Silence of the Lambs?
Oh, Anthony Hopkins?
Anthony Hopkins is in this thing. It's star-studded.
I don't know that I'd want to go into the Wild West in like an adventure lane.
Well, I'm just telling you.
With the typhoid and the...
Well, I don't think that stuff...
It's called the Westworld?
The Westworld. It starts on Sunday night, and they've been promoting the daylights out of it. It's maybe the new HBO answer to... They're still trying to answer Sopranos, to be honest.
Yeah, they've had some good ones along the way, but none as good.
Not as big as what they received with Sopranos. But anyway, it starts on Sunday night. On the line right now, Anthony Brindisi, the Assemblyman. Good morning, sir.
How are you, Bill?
Have you seen any clowns in your neighborhood?
I have not seen any clowns, but I tweeted yesterday when I saw that report on WKTV about it. Very scary for me. I am not a fan of those scary clowns, and I'm in the same boat as Buck's daughter there. So
yeah. I got to tell you, my wife even had a problem. The clown's a definite. She also had a problem with Santa Claus. Very afraid of Santa Claus.
Remember that movie Killer Clowns from Outer Space? Remember that movie?
Yeah,
it was like from the 80s or something like that. I think that freaked me out, and ever since then,
it's such a ridiculous film.
And don't you love though how we describe things? It's all based on our interpretation of things. So, for instance, Herkimer Police has dealt with 2 cases. 911 calls into the police department. Number one, it was someone described it as a creepy clown. Mm-hmm. The second reporting in Herkimer was a
killer clown.
Well,
so how do you take that step?
It's all in the interpretation.
How do you take that step to accuse the clown?
Of being
they
a killer.
Should call it the alleged killer clown.
And the person we're probably going to find out will come out and say, "No, I was just saying, boy, that's killer," like in a positive way.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Listen, speaking of killing, the state just has a great way of, through politics, killing progress when it comes to our school districts. And,
sure does.
And this funding thing, we can. I right off the bat address the 25 people that are going to text me and call me and Facebook and tweet about the fact that money's not going to solve this problem. Let's get that out of the way now.
Let's get that out of the way. The question is about how much money we spend on education. Yes, we spend more in New York State than most states do, I actually think that's a good thing because we value public education in New York State. But it's not about how much money we're putting into the pot. It's all taxpayer money. It's about where that money is going. And when you see that money not going to places in our area like Utica, Rome, Frankfurt, the high-need school districts in our region, even New Hartford's not considered a wealthy district because there is poverty in New Hartford.
Sure.
So when you see where it's not going to the high-need area. So I make the argument to people, and people say, "Why do I pay property taxes for schools? Why do I do this? Why do I do that?" And I respect those arguments, but you have to understand we can educate these children now when they're this age, or in many of these impoverished districts, if we allow them to fall through the cracks, believe it or not, you're going to be paying for it on the back end through social service cost of incarceration. So let's make the investments when these children are young, so they can have a chance of becoming productive citizens.
Yeah. I'm completely in agreement, and you're right. Down the road, it also makes our community a better place. If you have people who've been these kids have been educated, and they could actually find jobs here, make this area a better place to live. It makes our future brighter. And
it does. And money does translate to the classroom. Look, if you are a child in Utica, you are in a classroom of 30 to 35 children. You're competing against a child from a wealthier school district down in Westchester County who's got 18, 20 kids tops in the classroom. They're spending $50,000 a year on a child. We're spending 10 to 15. Who do you think who's going to perform better? So when you see larger class sizes, lack of money translates into larger class sizes. So that's less instruction, one-on-one for the teacher to the student. Cuts in academic intervention services to help those students who are struggling. Cuts in after-school programs, preschool programs. Those are the kind of things that it does take money to help educate children, especially in those impoverished districts. That's where you need the funding to go to help get those students to succeed.
Yeah. Can I just ask for a clarification? Is the discrepancy because, like when we talk about cost of living being different, so maybe downstate teachers have higher salaries or notebooks cost more or whatever, is that part of this? Does that factor into the equation?
Yeah, it does. If you look in wealthy districts in Long Island or Westchester, they're paying superintendents $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. It is, but they also are paying very high property taxes. They raise more off property taxes, and that's why they're spending much more on education for their students, because they are able to raise more in their property.
Well, their
taxes,
property
value, like Utica,
their homes are worth a lot. Their homes are worth so much more. I mean, it's that's part of the deal. But beyond that, I'm more into Manasseh's question. If you could dig in, and know the politics of this thing. One of the things that you might not know is the wealthiest school districts still get state aid.
Exactly. Utica is the fifth poorest district in the state of New York. It gets almost as much per pupil aid as the most wealthy district down in Long Island in the state of New York. It's unbelievable. There's no reason why state aid should be going to some of these districts that are able to fund their own school districts from their own property taxes.
Right.
And in addition to that, there's something called, in the state education formula, something called high tax aid. It's $200 million the state spends every year to subsidize these wealthier communities that pay higher property taxes. They don't need that money. Look, that kind of money should be going to places in the Mohawk Valley that actually need the funding to educate our children, so we don't have to have the cuts. Because you're competing, these students, when they're in high school, they are competing against students from other parts of the state, other parts of the country, to get into college. And when you fill out that college application, you have to fill out all the extracurricular things you have, all the AP programs. But if your school can't afford to pay for that, how can you compete against a kid in Westchester County or Long Island whose school offers, all these different programs, 10 languages and everything else?
And what we have is the vicious cycle that just keeps, you're at this level, your family was at this level, you're at this level, chances are you as an adult will be at this level, and you'll pass that same thing on to your children, because we can't elevate our kids. We don't have the same opportunities. These kids don't get to start at the same place, our kids, than kids from wealthier districts when they go off to college. They just don't.
They don't, and when you're dealing with children, especially in places like Utica or Rome, which are a little more impoverished, you have kids who are coming from backgrounds where they don't have parents in their life. They may have a parent in their life. The parent may be in jail, something like that. No one's taking an interest in their education. Then they go to the school building, and they're sitting in classrooms of 35 children where the teacher's running around trying to educate everyone in the classroom with no help, no teacher assistant.
Right.
And, a lot of the kids don't speak English. A lot of them may have some kind of disability or learning disability. So it's much more difficult to educate the children in that kind of environment. And when there's no funding, you can't put the services in place to help the teacher to educate.
So when you think about the money that's spent in an inner city school district, something like Utica, where you have, just as you described, the second language, the problems of broken families and broken homes. A lot of times what happens is the money they do get is going after something at a completely different. You're more basics. You're going after just getting these kids to be able to perform at the basic level, whereas that money that goes downstate gets to be used on the frill things, the really
Absolutely.
nice extra things.
They're getting horseback riding, 8, 10 foreign languages offered, all these extracurricular programs. It's wonderful. You like to see that. You hope every school district can offer that. Where in Utica, you had 400 layoffs in the last 8 years. You've had over 300 teachers laid off. They were able to bring some back last year because of some additional funding we were able to get them, but they are trying to make up for the losses they sustained in the last 8 years.
All right.
So just imagine if you were spending $50,000 a kid. I'm not advocating for that, but just imagine if you're spending $50,000 a kid in a place like Utica, all the programs you could put in place to help break that cycle of poverty.
Yeah. Listen, here's the problem, though, and I don't know what you do. But there's a lot of power in these districts that have, their medium home sale prices at $500,000 or whatever. Where we're looking in the 80s. There's a lot of power there. How do you change the legislation? How do you change the laws and the process and the formula?
I mean, the leader of the Senate is from Long Island. He was the head of the Education Committee before becoming the leader, and he's from one of those areas that are very powerful, and he has a powerful base on Long Island that protects those school districts. So you have to have willing partners in government that are able to do that. And look, and even I blame my own conference, too, in the Assembly. You have members that represent wealthier communities in Westchester and other areas that really complain about money that's sent upstate for different programs and things like that.
Yeah.
But look, this is money that's taxpayer money. We're putting into it. We're paying Albany for this. We should be getting a return. And we should be educating these students where the highest need is. Because like I said, we can do it now, or we can do it later on, and we're all going to be paying for it in the state.
All right. Assemblyman Brindisi, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right, thank you.
And a great weekend. Watch out for the clowns.
I'm locking my doors.